Have you ever boarded a plane, heart brimming with excitement, only to have a single moment turn your entire journey upside down? Meet Kendra Williams, a confident traveler thrilled about her newly upgraded seat on a flight from John F. Kennedy International Airport. But in a shocking twist, a flight attendant blatantly rejects her right to sit up front, all because of the color of her skin. What unfolds next is a dramatic chain of events that shatters assumptions, exposes hidden truths, and delivers a karmic lesson no one saw coming. Stay tuned. This story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Kendra Williams was a planner by nature. She arrived at John F. Kennedy International Airport, JFK, as everyone called it, 3 hours before her flight time, as if something deep inside had whispered that today's journey would be more than the usual hustle. Kendra had taken flights before, plenty of them for work family visits, and occasionally those cherished vacations with her close friends. But there was something distinctly different in the air this morning, an unspoken tension that made her neck prickle even before she'd checked in. The departure terminal glowed with overhead LED screens displaying flights to Singapore, London, Tokyo, and Los Angeles. The thick hum of travelers, some on urgent business, others on long-awaited holidays, filled the air. Suitcases rolled across the floors. Families chatted in multiple languages, and announcements pinged overhead, occasionally interrupting the gentle music that tried to soothe frazzled travelers. As Kendra approached the self-check-in kiosk, her phone buzzed with a text from a colleague. She glanced at the screen. "Can't wait to see you in LA." She smiled. This trip was not just about getting from point A to point B. It was about forging a future for herself. Kendra was traveling to Los Angeles for a major business pitch at a media conference that might propel her startup to the next level. Investors would be there, camera crews might film segments, and if all went well, Kendra's name would become synonymous with a new wave of tech solutions for content creators. At the kiosk, she discovered an unexpected delight. "You have been upgraded to business class," the screen declared in bold letters. A wave of excitement washed over her. Kendra had frequently flown economy, especially on business budgets, but someone, perhaps a sponsor or the airline's loyalty program, had bumped her up. The upgraded seat meant more legroom, better service, and a chance to work on her pitch deck in comfort. She printed her boarding pass, verifying the seat number 3A. A prime spot near the front. Even better, it wasn't a middle seat. She could already imagine the extra space for her laptop and the piece to review her notes. Before heading to the security checkpoint, Kendra treated herself to a latte from the famous Blue Bottle coffee kiosk in Terminal 4. The swirl of caffeine heightened her sense of promise. She took a long sip, letting the strong flavor settle on her tongue. She wondered if she was being set up for a perfect flight and a perfect day. Unbeknownst to her, the next few hours would be anything but perfect. By the time the boarding call sounded overhead, Kendra had organized her carry-on meticulously. She tucked her laptop pitch scripts and neatly printed references into an easily reachable section. Her phone was fully charged, her mind buzzing with ideas. She felt unstoppable. Passengers began to line up. Priority boarding was announced for first class, business class, and those requiring special assistance. Holding seat 3A, Kendra was eligible. She stepped into the line, noticing how some passengers shot her subtle glances as she confidently held her boarding pass. Kendra was accustomed to occasional stares. Sometimes it was curiosity, sometimes it was admiration, and sometimes it was something less benign. Being a tall, striking black woman with a commanding presence often drew attention. She stood tall, her posture proud, and reminded herself, "You belong here." As she approached the entrance to the jet bridge, the gate attendant scanned her pass with a friendly smile. "Enjoy your flight, Ms. Williams," the attendant said cheerfully, handing back the pass. Stepping into the narrow airplane aisle, she inhaled the faint odor of industrial cleaning solution, mixed with a hint of coffee. The seats in business class were plush, arranged in pairs, each separated by a sturdy armrest that housed seat controls. Kendra spotted her seat 3A next to a window, just as promised on her boarding pass. Already her mind drifted to how she might tweak the final slides of her pitch deck once she settled in. But as Kendra neared her row, she noticed a flight attendant watching her closely. The woman whose name tag read Charlotte M. wore the airline's distinctive navy blazer and skirt, her hair pulled back into a tight bun. Her lips were pressed so thin, they practically disappeared. She studied Kendra in a way that set off a twinge of discomfort. Still, Kendra greeted her politely. "Good morning," she said with a warm smile. Charlotte responded curtly. "Ma'am, can I see your boarding pass?" "Certainly," Kendra replied. She handed it over, assuming it was a routine check. Some attendants liked to confirm seat assignments to direct passengers effectively. Charlotte examined the boarding pass, and a flicker of surprise, maybe even annoyance, crossed her face. She paused, her eyes scanning the text repeatedly, then glancing at Kendra as though struggling to reconcile the two. Finally, Charlotte returned the boarding pass and said, Let me just confirm something." With an abruptness that caught Kendra off guard, she turned and walked toward the galley area near the front. Kendra tried not to think too much of it. Flight attendants often double-check. She set her carry-on in the overhead bin and sank into the plush seat. She stowed her purse under the seat in front of her, feeling the pleasant cushion beneath her. This was certainly a step up from her usual cramped economy seat. She told herself it was all standard procedure. Don't overthink it, Kendra. Moments later, Charlotte returned, now accompanied by another flight attendant, a middle-aged man named Philip. He gave Kendra a professional nod. "Ma'am, can I verify your boarding pass, please?" he asked politely. Some of the other business class passengers were starting to turn their heads, sensing that something was amiss. "Sure," Kendra said again, doing her best to appear cooperative and calm. Philip scrutinized the pass. 3A, Ms. Williams. "That's correct," he said, speaking slowly as if to reassure Charlotte that everything matched. But Charlotte's frown remained. "Well, maybe there was an error," Charlotte insisted, folding her arms. "We don't have any record of Ms. Williams on the upgrade list." Kendra's pulse quickened. She'd never heard of a situation like this, and she flew frequently. Why the fuss over an upgrade that the airline itself had provided, presumably as a courtesy or a glitch in the system that worked in her favor? She considered pulling up the email from her phone to show the official notification, but decided to let the professionals handle it first. Philip offered a conciliatory smile to Kendra. "Ma'am, please give us a moment to check with the gate. It might be a system update we haven't seen yet." He then pulled Charlotte aside for a private conversation. Kendra caught snippets. "Yes, it's unusual. But if it's in the system, we can't just—" Kendra sat there uncertain, feeling the stares from a few passengers. A pang of self-consciousness rippled through her. She tried to quell the uncomfortable question snaking its way into her mind. Would this be happening if I wasn't a black woman? Eventually, Philip returned wearing an apologetic look. "Ms. Williams, I just confirmed with the gate that your seat assignment is indeed 3A. There was an upgrade." His tone was professional, but there was an undercurrent of tension. He didn't say it outright, but the message was clear. "She belongs here, Charlotte. Let it go." Charlotte forced a thin smile. "Well then," she said, voice tight. "Welcome aboard." Kendra breathed an internal sigh of relief, but she knew something wasn't right. The subtle hostility in Charlotte's demeanor was undeniable. Kendra tucked her boarding pass away, refusing to let the tension sabotage her flight. Little did she know this was merely the beginning. The plane continued boarding overhead bins, filling up quickly. Kendra opened her laptop, intending to finalize some details for her pitch deck. She was determined to remain composed. Charlotte passed by several times, assisting passengers and showing them to their seats. Each time her face hardened whenever she glanced Kendra's way. About 10 minutes later, as the overhead speakers chimed for pre-departure announcements, Charlotte reappeared. She pointedly looked at Kendra, then at the seat number above. "Ms. Williams." She began, her tone openly confrontational. "I need you to move to economy. We've confirmed that your upgrade was a system error." A hush fell around the nearby seats. Kendra felt her heart hammering. She carefully shut her laptop. "I'm sorry, but you confirmed earlier that 3A is my seat," she replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I even received an email about the upgrade." Charlotte's nostrils flared. "I just spoke to my supervisor. Apparently a last-minute change was made, and that seat is reserved for another passenger now. You'll have to move back to seat 26B. Please gather your things." Kendra's jaw clenched. "I'm not sure I understand. I was told this seat was mine. I've already settled in. How can there suddenly be an error?" At that moment, Philip strode over, alarmed by the mounting tension. "Charlotte, we can't just move a passenger who has a confirmed seat," he said, turning to Kendra with a reassuring nod. "Ms. Williams, please hold on." Charlotte glared at him. "Our system shows that seat 3A is for another passenger who's on the upgrade list. Not Ms. Williams." Philip took a deep breath. "I checked the manifest, and Ms. Williams's seat in business class is valid." A few passengers nearby tried to keep their eyes averted, but curiosity won out and many listened. Among them was a middle-aged white couple who looked sympathetic, and a young black man, seated diagonally across, who watched with obvious discomfort. Kendra opened the email on her phone. "Here's the confirmation I received your airline's official email. It clearly states the upgrade seat 3A confirmed." She offered the phone to Charlotte, who barely glanced at the screen. "I'm sorry," Charlotte repeated, not sounding sorry at all, "but that seat is spoken for. Please move now, or I'll have to call security." Kendra's stomach dropped. The threat of calling security felt excessive, especially since she had the documentation proving she was in the right. She sensed the undercurrent. "This flight attendant is singling me out," Philip interjected. "Charlotte, enough. Let me speak to the supervisor." He turned to Kendra. "Ms. Williams, please remain seated for a moment. We'll get this resolved." While Philip stepped away to make a phone call at the front of the cabin, Charlotte remained. She stared at Kendra, arms folded. "We do not tolerate disruptive passengers," she said icily. Kendra's lips tightened. "I'm not disrupting anything. I'm simply occupying the seat assigned to me." A ripple of adrenaline coursed through Kendra. She'd heard stories, friends being racially profiled on flights or singled out in lines. She always hoped it would never happen to her. Yet here she was, in the middle of a humiliating confrontation that felt more personal than any system error could explain. Just then, an older gentleman in a crisp business suit slid into seat 3B next to Kendra. He glanced between Kendra and Charlotte. Sensing tension, he removed his headphones. "Everything all right here?" he asked politely. Charlotte ignored him, turned her back, and walked away to attend to some other matter, possibly to fetch the supervisor. The older gentleman looked at Kendra, his eyes gentle. "I'm Todd," he introduced himself quietly. "Is there a problem?" Kendra, feeling a surge of embarrassment, gave a tight smile. "Apparently the flight attendant says my upgrade is invalid and wants me to move to economy." Todd frowned. "Well, that's not fair. If you have the documentation, they shouldn't force you back." Kendra nodded, grateful for his concern. She realized that behind her frustration and indignation, she also felt wounded. Why did she have to fight for a seat that was rightfully hers? Why was she being threatened with security for simply sitting where she was assigned? Philip returned a moment later with the cabin supervisor, a tall woman named Alicia. Alicia wore a calm, assured expression, someone who had likely handled countless flight issues. She reviewed Kendra's boarding pass, scanned Kendra's phone, then tapped on her own tablet. "Ms. Williams, it shows here that you were indeed upgraded." "You are correct," Alicia said, exhaling as though exhausted by the confusion. "Please remain in your seat. I apologize for the inconvenience." For a moment, Kendra felt relief washing over her. But the sense of victory was fleeting when Charlotte hurried back, looking incensed. "Alicia," she hissed, "I was told by dispatch that seat 3A belongs to a passenger with a higher loyalty status. We have to be consistent with policy." Alicia stared at her colleague, eyebrows raised in surprise. "I have the final passenger list from dispatch right here on the tablet. Ms. Williams is in 3A. That's final." Philip nodded in agreement, relieved to see his supervisor backing him. "Charlotte, we must respect what the manifest says," he added softly, trying to de-escalate. Kendra looked at Todd, who gave her an encouraging nod. She felt the tension in the cabin ease just a fraction. Another flight attendant stepped forward to start the safety demonstration. The conflict seemed settled for now. The plane pushed back from the gate, and the cabin lights dimmed for takeoff. Kendra felt her shoulders slowly relax. She offered Alicia and Philip a small, grateful smile before they took their positions for departure. Charlotte, however, remained stern-faced, avoiding Kendra's gaze entirely. As the plane ascended through the clouds, Todd tried to lighten the mood. "So, traveling for business or pleasure?" he asked Kendra, offering a disarming smile. "Business," Kendra replied, forcing a more relaxed tone. She told him about the media conference in Los Angeles, her startup, and her excitement for the future. Todd listened with genuine interest. "That sounds incredible. I'm a financial consultant. Maybe we'll cross paths professionally one day." He handed her a business card. Somewhere around 30 minutes into the flight, the seatbelt sign switched off, and the flight attendants began the beverage service. Philip rolled the cart down the aisle. When he reached Kendra and Todd, he offered them the usual choices: coffee, tea, juice, soda, or water. Kendra asked for water. Todd requested coffee. Philip smiled warmly as he poured the drinks. But Charlotte hovered just behind Philip, peering over his shoulder. Her posture was stiff, her expression hard to read. When Kendra asked for some extra lemon slices, Charlotte stepped in abruptly. "We're short on lemons," she said, glaring. Philip, taken aback, glanced at the cart. "Actually, we have some right here." Charlotte cut him off. "We need to save them for first class." With that, she briskly moved on. Philip mouthed an apology discreetly, reaching into the cart to slip Kendra 2 lemon wedges. Then he pushed the cart further down the aisle, leaving Kendra to simmer with uneasy disbelief. Todd leaned closer to Kendra. "I'm sorry you're going through this. It's like she has a personal vendetta. Kendra gave a slow nod, sipping her water. Was Charlotte's hostility about the seat mix-up? Or was it something deeper Kendra had dealt with, subtle and not so subtle racism before in her life? She recognized the signs. The rigid posture, the tone of authority coupled with intimidation, the unnecessary challenges over trivial matters. With beverage service complete, the plane cabin settled into mid-flight quiet. Some passengers watched movies or drifted off to sleep. Kendra opened her laptop to revise her business pitch, but her focus was repeatedly shattered by Charlotte's presence drifting by with an almost tangible disdain. When meal service started another perk of business class, Kendra braced herself. Charlotte was one of the attendants distributing trays. She handed Todd his meal with a polite, albeit forced, smile. Then she turned to Kendra with an expression that was anything but friendly. "Which meal did you pre-order?" Charlotte asked stiffly. "Grilled chicken with roasted vegetables," Kendra answered, recalling the airline's website option. Charlotte scanned her list. "Says here you didn't select a meal. We only have fish left." Kendra furrowed her brow. "I specifically selected the grilled chicken on the airline's website. I even have the confirmation email." Todd, who had heard everything, chimed in. "Maybe you should double-check Charlotte. She's had valid confirmations for everything else. It might be the system again." Charlotte's jaw clenched. "Fine. Let me check in the galley." She snapped, then disappeared. A few minutes later, Alicia emerged instead, carrying a tray of grilled chicken with roasted vegetables. "Ms. Williams, here's your meal. I'm truly sorry for the confusion." Kendra thanked her. Another wave of relief, but also exhaustion. She was tired of the near-constant tension. Alicia lingered a moment. "If you need anything else, please ring the call button. I'll be happy to help." Her tone was gentle, sympathetic. Kendra forced a smile. "Thank you." Alicia glanced around, noticing Charlotte scowling from the adjacent galley. She lowered her voice. "We'll make sure your flight is as comfortable as possible, Ms. Williams. Please don't hesitate to let me or Philip know if you have any concerns." The rest of the meal passed without further incident, though. Kendra could feel Charlotte's hostility radiating across the aisle. Kendra tried to immerse herself in business planning, but anxiety buzzed inside her. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. An hour later, the cabin lights dimmed to let passengers rest. Kendra decided to watch a documentary on her laptop, but her thoughts wandered, replaying the conflict. Her heart was still racing. She was no stranger to microaggressions, but this was something more blatant, like an outright campaign to push her away. A gentle tap on her shoulder startled her. She looked up to see the young black man, from earlier the one who'd been seated diagonally across. He'd come over quietly as if not to attract attention. He leaned in, speaking in a hushed tone. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I just need to say this. I saw everything that happened, and it's not right." She blinked in surprise. "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot. Sometimes you start to wonder if you're imagining things." He shook his head. "I'm Jalen, by the way. I'm an athlete, traveling with my team for a game in LA. The way she treated you, it's not just in your head. If you need a witness or something, I've got your back." Gratefulness welled in Kendra's chest. She offered a smile. "I appreciate that, Jalen. That's really kind of you." He gently patted her shoulder. "We have to look out for each other, you know." Then he returned to his seat. Kendra felt a surge of solidarity. Her experiences hadn't always been validated by onlookers. Often she was left to wonder if others noticed, or simply chose not to get involved. That Jalen took it upon himself to offer support made her feel less isolated. Her phone buzzed with a message from her business partner, Simone, who was already in Los Angeles. Just landed. Can't wait, too. See you. Let's crush this pitch. The reminder of her purpose for this trip rekindled her determination. She tried to focus on what truly mattered, delivering an outstanding pitch at the conference and propelling her startup forward. A little while later, the flight started encountering mild turbulence. The pilot announced it was nothing major, just a bit of bumpy air. Charlotte and Philip did a seatbelt check, ensuring all passengers were safe. Charlotte paused at Kendra's row, gesturing at the overhead bin. "Ma'am, is that your carry-on bag?" Kendra looked up. "Yes, it's mine." "Why?" Charlotte set her jaw. "It's not stowed properly. It might shift during turbulence. Can you get up and fix it?" Kendra glanced at the overhead bin. It was shut tightly with no sign of anything amiss. "It looks fine to me." "Did it shift open?" Charlotte pursed her lips. "I need you to get up and reorganize it. We can't have loose bags." Todd frowned. "My bag is up there too," he said. Everything was stowed properly when we boarded. Ignoring Todd, Charlotte arched an eyebrow at Kendra. "Ma'am, I'm giving you an instruction for the safety of the cabin. If you refuse, I'll have to write this up as a passenger violation." Kendra couldn't believe what she was hearing. She wasn't going to risk an altercation mid-flight, especially not with Charlotte brandishing the threat of an official write-up or worse, involving security. With a resigned sigh, she unbuckled her seatbelt. The plane jerked slightly from turbulence, making it awkward to stand. Carefully, she opened the bin. Her carry-on was as she'd left it snugly fit, no issues. Still, she nudged it to reassure Charlotte. "There," she said quietly, ignoring the fresh wave of embarrassment, as a few more passengers peeked over to witness the pointless confrontation. Charlotte gave a curt nod. "Thank you," she said, in a tone that communicated anything but gratitude. She moved on, leaving Kendra's heart pounding. No more than 10 minutes after that, Charlotte confronted Kendra again, complaining her seatback was reclined during turbulence, even though the seatbelt sign was off. Kendra felt tears of frustration threatening to surface. Was she truly being policed for every small action while the other business-class passengers reclined at will? Finally, Philip returned to Kendra's row, face drawn with concern. "Ms. Williams." "I can see you're upset," he said softly. "Let me know if there's anything I can do." Kendra swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'm trying to remain calm, but she keeps singling me out. Is there a reason for this?" Philip lowered his gaze, hesitating. "I don't want to speak ill of a colleague. But please know, we're not all like that." "Is it because I'm Kendra started?" But Philip's pained expression answered for him. He couldn't say it outright, perhaps out of professional protocol, but they both knew what was happening. As the flight continued, the tension thickened. Alicia, the supervisor, took notice. During a lull in service, she quietly approached Kendra. "Ms. Williams, I'd like you to know that if you experience any further problems, you can file an official complaint after the flight lands. I'll provide you with all the necessary information." Her eyes flicked toward Charlotte, who stood at the far end of the galley. "We take these matters seriously." Kendra let out a slow breath, nodding her appreciation. "Thank you, Alicia. I hope it doesn't come to that." But the universe seemed intent on pushing Kendra to her limit. About an hour before landing, Charlotte made a round through the cabin, presumably to collect trash and do last-minute checks. She stopped abruptly at Kendra's row. "Ma'am, can I see your ticket again?" Kendra stared in disbelief. "Why?" "I need to verify you're in the correct seat for landing procedures," Charlotte said, with manufactured politeness. Kendra's eyes flicked to Todd, who shook his head in exasperation. Kendra looked back at Charlotte, her frustration bubbling. She rummaged through her purse and handed over the boarding pass. Charlotte studied it with an exaggerated slowness. Then she sniffed and handed it back. She murmured, as though still unconvinced. Something in Kendra snapped. She was done being humiliated. Heart pounding. Pounding, she stood up enough to face Charlotte, keeping her voice low but firm. "I've complied with every request. I've shown you my boarding pass multiple times. If there's a real issue, bring the cabin supervisor here. Otherwise, please stop harassing me." A hush fell around them. Todd subtly scooted aside as though giving them space. Kendra noticed Jalen in his seat, watching like a hawk ready to intervene if needed. Charlotte's cheeks colored. "Ma'am, I'm simply doing my job. There's no need to make a scene." Kendra inhaled deeply, refusing to raise her voice. "I'm not making a scene, Ms. Charlotte. You have repeatedly singled me out, threatening to call security to move me from my assigned seat to write me up for non-existent violations. I'm tired of it." A tense moment passed, and Kendra fully expected Charlotte to snap back or escalate. Instead, Charlotte's eyes darted around as if realizing how many people were watching and how alienated she'd become. She spun on her heel and walked away without another word. The seatbelt sign switched on soon after, indicating they'd begun their descent into Los Angeles. Passengers busied themselves gathering their belongings, tidying trays, and preparing for landing. Kendra locked her tray table in place, but her mind whirled with the day's events. Just then Todd leaned over. "Kendra," he said quietly, "I'm not sure if you're aware, but a couple of passengers have been filming snippets. I saw them with their phones out during a few of those confrontations." Kendra's eyes widened. She hadn't noticed, but it made sense. People these days recorded everything, especially moments of injustice or conflict. Todd shrugged. "I wouldn't be surprised if someone posts it on social media. You might want to be prepared for that." Kendra's gut twisted. She wasn't camera shy, especially as a startup founder who had pitched in front of large audiences. But the idea of her humiliating experience being broadcast to the world was overwhelming. She also realized it could spark an important conversation about racism and discrimination. By the time the plane touched down, Kendra's phone was alive with notifications she hadn't yet checked. As the passengers filed out into the aisle, a few offered her smiles or nods of solidarity. Jalen gave her a thumbs up. Todd shook her hand, whispering, "Good luck with your conference, and I hope you get some justice." Stepping off the plane, Kendra felt the warm Los Angeles air envelop her. She wanted to race straight to baggage claim, forgetting this nightmare ever happened. But a part of her knew she couldn't just let it go. At the gate, Alicia caught up to Kendra, looking apologetic. "Ms. Williams, I want you to know we're documenting this. I spoke to the pilot and made a note in our system. If you want to file a formal complaint, please do." She handed Kendra a business card with the airline's customer relations contact. Kendra thanked her chest, still tight with lingering stress. She walked to the baggage carousel, glancing occasionally at her phone. She saw a string of texts from friends. Kendra. "Is this you on Twitter? Someone posted a video. OMG, you're going viral. Are you okay?" Her pulse quickened. Sure enough, a quick scroll on Twitter revealed a video clip showing Charlotte standing over Kendra's seat, voice raised, insisting Kendra move to economy. The tweet was something like, "Flight attendant tries to kick black woman out of business class. Seat she paid for #racism, not airline fail." Already, there were thousands of retweets and comments. People were outraged, calling out to the airline for discriminatory treatment. The airline's official handle was being tagged repeatedly by furious netizens demanding an explanation. While Kendra was still in shock, her phone rang. Simone, her business partner. "Kendra, are you all right? I just saw the video. People are tagging your name all over social media. They're calling you an inspiration for standing up for yourself." Kendra let out a shaky exhale, blinking back tears of frustration. "I'm a mess, Simone. That was the most humiliating flight of my life. But yes, I'm okay physically." Simone's tone was resolute. "Good. Then let's figure out how to use this for the better. You know how important your voice is." Kendra nodded, tears finally escaping. "I'm just so drained. Let me grab my luggage, and I'll be there soon." That afternoon, Kendra arrived at the Los Angeles Convention Center, suitcase in tow, heart still pounding with residual adrenaline. The media conference buzzed with activity attendees, milling around, name badges, swinging from lanyards, cameras, and microphones lined up for the day's big presentations. Simone, a petite woman with a fierce demeanor, caught up to Kendra at the entrance. "I can't believe you had to deal with that," she said, hugging Kendra tight. "Are you sure you're up for pitching?" Kendra took a calming breath. "I've worked too hard to let one terrible flight attendant sabotage my opportunity." They pushed open the large doors to the main hall. Rows of seats faced a stage, and a giant digital screen displayed the conference's schedule. Kendra and Simone had a booth in a side exhibition area, showcasing their startup's software. The plan was to pitch investors in a breakout session, hoping to secure funding. But word of the mid-air altercation had already reached some of the conference organizers. One of them approached Kendra. "I saw the Twitter video. That's insane." "How are you feeling?" Kendra offered a professional smile. "I'm managing, thanks, trying to stay focused on the work." He nodded solemnly. "Well, if you need any help or want a platform to address it, let me know." Kendra thanked him and joined Simone at their booth. They quickly dived into setting up laptops, demos, and marketing materials. Despite the swirl of publicity around her, Kendra forced herself to focus on her pitch. An hour before their scheduled pitch, Simone tugged Kendra's sleeve. "You might want to see this," she said, pointing at her phone. A news segment from a local LA station was running a short piece on the viral video. The anchor stated, "A passenger on a flight from JFK to LAX captured footage of what appears to be discriminatory behavior by a flight attendant. The airline has released a statement that they are investigating the incident." Kendra's jaw dropped. It hadn't even been a full day yet, her story was already making local news. Simone grimaced sympathetically. "It's not the publicity we wanted, but maybe it'll shed light on a real issue." Soon conference attendees and even some potential investors recognized Kendra. Rather than scorn, she was met with compassion and curiosity. People approached the booth saying things like, "I'm so sorry about what you went through, and if you ever want to share your story, let us know." To Kendra's surprise, the support galvanized her confidence. She realized she wasn't fighting alone. People were paying attention, and they believed her. This was bigger than one seat assignment. This was about challenging discrimination head-on. When the time came for Kendra and Simone to present their business pitch to a panel of investors in a breakout room, Kendra felt her nerves flutter. Typically, She prided herself on her calm stage presence. But the day's earlier trauma still weighed on her. She glanced at Simone, who gave her a reassuring nod. They stepped onto the small stage facing about 50 audience members, including a panel of venture capitalists. Kendra cleared her throat, introduced herself and the concept of their startup, a software platform aimed at streamlining collaboration between content creators and sponsors. Despite her inner turmoil, Kendra delivered the pitch with precision and passion. She spoke of her personal journey, how she recognized the challenges creators faced in monetizing their work, and how her software solution addressed these pain points efficiently. Simone chimed in seamlessly, demonstrating the product's interface. The panel asked questions. How do you plan to scale? What's your revenue model? How do you stand out from competitors? Kendra and Simone answered confidently. At the end of the session, the audience erupted into applause. Kendra felt a rush of relief and excitement. Several of the panelists approached them afterward, exchanging business cards and nods of approval. One investor, known for her success with tech startups, whispered, "I'd love to schedule a follow-up meeting. Your solution is exactly what we need in the market right now." Kendra's eyes sparkled. The day had started disastrously, but perhaps it was turning around. Later, as Kendra and Simone manned their booth, a tall woman in a tailored suit approached. She introduced herself as Angela Dawson, a representative for one of the biggest cable news networks. "I saw the story about your flight experience," Angela said. "I'm also covering this conference, so I'm in a unique position to help broadcast your business pitch and your personal story." Kendra exchanged a quick look with Simone. Media attention could propel their startup to new heights, especially from a major network, but it also meant more exposure of the harrowing flight ordeal. Angela continued, "I think it's important for viewers to see that entrepreneurs from all backgrounds face hurdles, sometimes even before they step off a plane. I'd love to interview you, highlight your company, and discuss the broader issues of racism in travel." Kendra felt a conflicting swirl of emotions. The desire to share her truth and create change weighed against the vulnerability of going public on a larger scale. But that sense of responsibility won out. "Yes, I'd be willing to talk," she said. "Thank you for the opportunity." That same evening, the airline released a more detailed statement. "We are aware of an incident involving one of our flight attendants and a passenger in business class on Flight 172 from JFK to LAX. We take these allegations seriously and have launched an internal investigation. Our commitment is to provide respectful service to all passengers. We regret any distress caused and will communicate further once the investigation concludes." Social media erupted with demands for accountability, with countless individuals sharing their own stories of mistreatment by airline staff. Hashtags like #flight attendant fail and #flying, while black trended for hours. In the midst of this outrage, Charlotte's name surfaced. An anonymous user claiming to be an airline employee posted, "Charlotte M. has had multiple complaints in the past." Management kept sweeping it under the rug. This time, they can't ignore it. Kendra's phone buzzed non-stop, with messages from friends, acquaintances, and even strangers who resonated with her experience. Some expressed gratitude that she was speaking out. Others offered legal advice, and some simply sent emotional support. Early the next morning, as Kendra and Simone prepped for a second day of the conference, an email from the airline's customer relations department popped up in Kendra's inbox. The subject line read, "Urgent personal apology and resolution." The email stated, Dear Ms. Williams, we deeply apologize for the events you encountered on our flight. We have launched a full review and will be taking appropriate action. As a gesture of goodwill, we'd like to offer you a refund for your ticket, along with an additional voucher for future travel. Our corporate office would also appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and hear your recommendations on how we can improve training and oversight. Kendra showed the email to Simone with a humorless laugh. They want me to help them fix what they should already know is broken, she said wearily. But maybe this is a chance to actually influence change. Simone nodded. This could be huge. And if you do a call with them, maybe we can push for real policy reforms, not just lip service. Kendra replied to the email, agreeing to have a conversation with a high-level representative. She felt both a sense of hope and a cynical weariness she'd seen corporations promise reforms before, only for old patterns to remain. The second day at the conference was a whirlwind of meetings, panel discussions, and product demos. Kendra was in the middle of explaining a feature to a potential client when she noticed a message from an unknown number. Hello, Ms. Williams. This is Charlotte M. I'd like to talk if you have a moment. Kendra's blood froze. How had Charlotte gotten her contact information? Possibly from internal airline resources. A flurry of emotions surged: anger, confusion, pity. She ignored the message at first, focusing on finishing her business discussions. By evening, as the conference wrapped curiosity and a sense of closure pushed her to respond. What do you want? Charlotte. Immediately a reply came. I'd like to meet and apologize in person. I'm in LA after being put on leave. Please, can we talk? Kendra's eyes narrowed at the mention of leave. Perhaps Charlotte had been suspended pending investigation. Part of Kendra wanted to wash her hands of the entire ordeal, but another part felt drawn to understand Charlotte's motives. Against Simone's caution, Kendra decided to meet Charlotte in a public location, a cafe near the convention center. She arrived early, choosing a table in the back. Her nerves jangled as she sipped iced tea. Charlotte entered a few minutes later, her usually rigid posture replaced by a noticeable slump. She wasn't in uniform, just plain jeans and a blouse, and her hair was loose around her shoulders. Even from across the room, she looked like a woman weighed down by regret. Cautiously, Charlotte approached the table. Kendra gestured for her to sit. They faced each other in tense silence for a moment. I want to say, I'm sorry, Charlotte began, voice trembling slightly. The airline has suspended me while they investigate the incident. I could lose my job. Kendra raised an eyebrow. And you think an apology to me will fix that? Charlotte's eyes darted away. I don't expect forgiveness. But I do need you to know that I've been going through some personal issues. My husband left me, and she choked up. That's not an excuse for what I did. I wasn't myself. Kendra's heart hammered, anger and empathy warring inside her. What exactly are you apologizing for? Causing me public humiliation, threatening me with security, or the racism that fueled it all? Charlotte's face crumpled. I swear, I'm not racist. Then why did you target me specifically? Kendra pressed voice tight. There were other passengers in business class. Why me? Charlotte bit her lip, tears forming. I was stressed, and I thought there was a system error. You must understand, I've had issues with people trying to sneak into seats they didn't pay for. Kendra slammed her iced tea on the table, causing a small splash. So you assumed I was trying to sneak in because I'm black, right? Charlotte looked miserable. I made a horrible assumption. I grew up in a very narrow-minded environment. Sometimes I catch myself viewing certain people with suspicion. I'm so sorry, Ms. Williams. Silence pulsed between them. Kendra felt a mix of anger, sadness, and something akin to pity. She remembered the countless times she'd faced microaggressions. Charlotte was just one example of a deeper societal problem. How can I trust any of what you're saying is genuine? Kendra asked softly, her tone steely. Charlotte's tears spilled over. I don't know. I've never been in trouble at work before, but clearly I've messed up. I might lose my job, my pension. If you retract your complaint. Kendra sat back, letting Charlotte's words sink in. I never filed a formal complaint, Charlotte. The airline started its own investigation because the video went viral. Charlotte's mouth parted in shock. You didn't? No, Kendra replied firmly. But I intend to speak to the airline about systemic changes. This isn't just about me and you. It's about every passenger who's been profiled or mistreated. Charlotte lowered her gaze. I understand. I don't deserve mercy. But please know I truly am sorry. Kendra measured Charlotte's words. She could see the woman was broken, terrified of losing her livelihood. Kendra believed in accountability, but she also believed in growth and second chances. She rose from her seat, collecting her bag. Charlotte, if the airline contacts me, I'll tell them the truth that you harassed me, but also that you reached out to apologize. Whether they fire you or not, I hope you do some real soul-searching and unlearn those biases. Charlotte, tears streaking her face, nodded shakily. Thank you for at least hearing me out. Kendra turned to leave. She felt a weight lift, replaced by a new resolution. She wouldn't let Charlotte's behavior undermine her success or overshadow her story. Instead, she'd use it to spark conversations and demand better. In the weeks that followed, the airline wrapped up its investigation. They issued an official apology to Kendra, compensating her fully. Charlotte's fate remained uncertain. The airline announced she was undergoing additional training and had been transferred to a position away from direct passenger contact, pending further review. Meanwhile, Kendra's pitch at the media conference bore fruit. Several investors expressed serious interest, culminating in a substantial funding offer for her startup. Overnight, Kendra became a rising star in the tech scene, with media outlets wanting her perspective on both entrepreneurship and social justice issues. One evening, Kendra appeared on a televised segment, interviewed by Angela Dawson. I don't want to be known just as the passenger who was targeted by a flight attendant, Kendra told the camera. But if my experience can shine a light on discrimination and push for more inclusive policies, both in air travel and beyond, then I'll embrace that role. Angela nodded. Do you think the airline's response was sufficient? Kendra paused thoughtfully. They're taking steps in the right direction, but it can't be a one-time reaction. We need continuous training, zero tolerance for racial profiling, and a genuine culture shift. That's when real change happens. Weeks turned into months, and life moved swiftly for Kendra Williams. Her startup had gone from hopeful concept to promising industry disruptor. Major tech outlets covered her progress, and her face appeared on panels and interviews across platforms. Investors impressed not only by her innovation, but also by her poise through adversity continued to back her efforts. But even with all the success, the incident on that flight still echoed quietly in her memory. Sometimes it replayed without warning Charlotte's tone, the humiliation of being challenged again and again, the ache of needing to prove her right to occupy a seat she'd earned. But more often now, what lingered were the responses that followed the outpouring of support, the solidarity from strangers, and the surprising ways her story had reached people far beyond that airplane cabin. One evening, as she reviewed analytics from her software's latest beta test, an email came through with the subject line, "Your story changed my workplace." Kendra hesitated, then clicked it open. "Hello, Ms. Williams. I'm a flight attendant for a different airline. I've seen a lot of stories about discrimination, but yours really stuck with me. After your video went viral, I brought it up during a staff meeting. That led to our team holding our very first workshop on microaggressions and unconscious bias. It was uncomfortable for some, but it was necessary. And it wouldn't have happened without your courage. Thank you for standing your ground. You inspired change beyond what you could see." Warmly. A fellow crew member, Kendra, reread the message, her hand slowly coming up to cover her mouth. She blinked back tears. This one simple note struck harder than 1,000 retweets. It wasn't just about her story being seen. It was about the ripple effect it created. People were listening. People were reflecting. And some, like this anonymous flight attendant, were doing something about it. Later that week, another message came from a black college student studying aviation management. She wrote, "You're the reason I haven't dropped out of this program. I saw how you handled yourself with grace and power. Now I want to be the kind of airline executive who rewrites the rules from the inside." Kendra sat back in her chair, heart pounding with a cocktail of pride and disbelief. These weren't just strangers, they were allies in progress, kindred spirits, shaped by a shared dream of justice and dignity. In quieter moments, when the flash of press interviews dimmed and the noise of social media faded, it was these messages that stayed with her. It reminded her that advocacy wasn't about grand gestures alone. It was also about the quiet courage to speak up in moments of discomfort, and that sometimes the smallest note from a stranger could echo louder than a standing ovation. Her pain had not been wasted. It had become purpose. A few months later, Kendra had to fly to a major tech event in San Francisco. She booked a seat in business class, courtesy of the success her startup was now enjoying. As she settled into her seat, she felt a moment of unease recalling the traumatizing incident. But the flight attendants this time were courteous, greeting her with genuine smiles. She took a breath of relief, reminding herself that not all flights and not all flight attendants were the same. Mid-flight, she looked out the window at the clouds drifting below. She thought about Charlotte, where she might be, whether she'd learned from her mistakes, whether she was forging a new path. Kendra also reflected on her own journey, how a single moment of injustice had propelled her into the public eye, but also led her to an incredible stage where her voice was amplified for good. The plane glided onto the tarmac in San Francisco, smooth as silk. Kendra took it as a sign that she was indeed on the right path. Life has a way of taking our darkest moments and shaping them into something that propels us toward growth and change. Kendra Williams stepped on that flight, bound for Los Angeles, ecstatic about an unexpected seat upgrade. Instead, she found herself thrust into a maelstrom of blatant discrimination. Yet what could have broken her spirit turned into a catalyst for transformation, not just in her personal journey, but in a system that desperately needed reform. Her story went viral, sparking conversations around racial bias, accountability, and the importance of speaking up. And in the aftermath, Kendra emerged stronger, forging valuable partnerships for her tech startup, while advocating for more inclusive training in the airline industry. If this story inspired you, please like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that highlight the power of courage and resilience. Thank you for listening.